Imagine a friendly neighborhood guy handing out free candy to kids after school, the kind of person everyone trusts. Now picture that same man luring teenage boys to a house of horrors, where screams echo for days before silence falls forever. This is the twisted true story of Dean Corll, known as the Candyman and the Houston mass murders, one of America's most shocking serial killing sprees. Between 1970 and 1973, Corll and his teenage accomplices abducted, tortured, and murdered at least 28 young boys in Houston, Texas. Their bodies were buried in a rented boat shed, hidden in plain sight for years. This tale of deception, sadism, and betrayal shocked the nation when it broke in 1973. Viewer discretion is advised. The details are graphic and heartbreaking. Settle in for a dive into the darkness behind the sweets. Let's start at the beginning. Dean Arnold Corll was born on December 7, 1939, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, to middle-class parents Mary and Arnold Corll. His folks ran a small piping company, but the marriage soured quickly. By 1946, they divorced, and young Dean, just 7 years old, moved with his mother to Houston, Texas. Life there was a grind. Mary worked long hours at a bakery, leaving Dean to fend for himself emotionally. He was a chubby, awkward kid, bullied at school for his stutter and glasses, but he was smart, excelling in subjects like woodworking and electronics. Deep down, though, something festered. Neighbors later recalled Dean's odd fascination with the neighborhood boys, always offering them treats or fixes for their bikes. It was innocent on the surface, but hints of obsession simmered. In his teens, Dean joined the ROTC and dreamed of military service, but a heart murmur kept him out of Vietnam. Instead, he helped his mom launch the Corll Candy Company in the early 1960s, a small operation churning out pecan pralines and other sweets sold door to door. Dean became the face of the business, tall, clean-cut, with a disarming smile and a knack for chatting up customers, especially the kids in Houston's working-class neighborhoods. He lived modestly in a series of apartments and houses in the Heights area, a quiet suburb where blue-collar families scraped by. To the outside world, Dean was the all-American guy, polite, generous, even volunteering as a scoutmaster. But behind closed doors, his interests turned dark. He devoured true crime books and subscribed to bondage magazines, collecting clippings about sexual deviance. Friends noticed he never dated women seriously, preferring the company of young boys he mentored through the candy route. By 1969, Dean's web began to tighten. Enter David Owen Brooks, a 14-year-old from a broken home, whom Dean met while selling candy. Brooks was troubled, absent father, neglectful mother, and Dean saw opportunity. He groomed the boy with gifts, cash, and attention, eventually paying him $200 to perform a sexual act. Brooks, desperate for approval, became Corll's first accomplice, introducing him to other vulnerable teens from Houston's poor South Side. These were kids from the fringes, runaways, dropouts, boys hustling for beer money or a place to crash. Dean's candy van, a white Plymouth, became a rolling trap, stocked with sweets and promises of parties or jobs. The murders started in September 1970. The first known victim was 18-year-old Jeffrey Conan, a University of Texas student hitchhiking home from Austin. Corll picked him up, drove him to his Pasadena apartment, and never let him leave. What followed was a ritual of unimaginable cruelty. Victims were plied with alcohol or drugs to lower their guard, then bound with handcuffs or ropes disguised as a game. Corll's torture chamber was his bedroom, plywood walls to muffle screams, a homemade sex swing, and tools like knives, pliers, and a .22 pistol. He'd assault them for hours, sometimes days, beating, burning with cigarettes, or forcing them to watch porn while he monologued about his lessons in manhood. Brooks later testified that Corll reveled in the power, calling it training for weakness. When the boy broke, and they all did, Corll finished them with strangulation or a bullet to the head, often while they begged for mercy. The bodies? Corll and Brooks dismembered them in the bathtub, wrapping parts in plastic and burying them at remote Lake Sam Rayburn, 100 miles northeast of Houston. Over the next year, the duo claimed at least 5 more victims, including 13-year-old David Hillegeest and his 16-year-old friend Gregory Malley, who vanished while swimming in the bayou. Their parents searched frantically, plastering missing posters everywhere, but Houston's sprawling suburbs swallowed the leads. Police dismissed many reports as runaways, a tragic oversight in an era before Amber Alerts. Dean kept his day job, charming parents at PTA meetings while their son's remains rotted in the woods. By 1971, the operation scaled up with a new player, Elmer Wayne Henley Jr., a 15-year-old Brooks brought into the fold. Henley was street smart, from a violent home where his dad beat his mom, and he idolized the older men. Corll paid him too, $100 per job, and soon Henley was luring boys himself, posing as a cool older brother with access to booze and weed. The trio's MO evolved. They'd cruise Houston's meat racks, spots where teens hung out, offering rides to wild parties. Once isolated, the boys were chained spread-eagle to Corll's torture board. Henley's role grew from lookout to participant. He held down victims, even shot one himself. The killings accelerated. 1972 alone saw at least 10 murders, including 15-year-old Mark Scott, whose brother later said, "He was excited about a date that night. We never saw him again." Corll's Pasadena home became ground zero, but he needed a better dump site. In August 1973, he rented a boat shed in southwest Houston for $200 a month, owned by a friend unaware of its purpose. There, in the humid darkness, they buried the last 17 victims in plastic, layered like cordwood under a thin coat of lime to speed decomposition. The shed was just 10 by 10 feet, reeking of death, but neighbors chalked it up to boat varnish. By summer '73, the total body count hit 28 confirmed, though Corll bragged to Brooks about double that. Victims ranged from 13 to 20, mostly white, working-class kids from families too poor for private eyes. Names like Billy Balch, 17, whose brother was killed earlier, or Wendell Grabs, 14, a runaway lured with promises of a job at the candy factory. The end came abruptly on August 8, 1973. Henley, now 17, brought 15-year-old Roland Scott to Corll's house for what he thought was a threesome, but Corll flew into a rage when Henley tried to stop the torture, handcuffing the teen and pointing a gun at his head. Henley begged for his life, then grabbed a nearby .22 pistol and fired 6 shots into Corll's chest and forehead. The Candyman crumpled, dead at 33. Panicked, Henley called Brooks, then drove to the sheriff's office at 3 a.m., confessing, "I just killed my friend." Skeptical deputies dismissed him as a prankster until he led them to the boat shed. What they found was apocalypse. 17 decomposed bodies, some mummified, stacked amid maggots and quicklime. Plastic bags burst open, revealing skulls, hands, and genitals preserved in jars back at Corll's apartment. Autopsies confirmed the horrors: torture marks, sexual trauma, gunshot wounds. Over the next weeks, divers dredged Lake Sam Rayburn, unearthing 8 more sets of remains. Houston reeled. 28 boys gone, families shattered. The media frenzy dubbed it the Houston mass murders, the worst in U.S. history at the time. Police scrambled, interviewing hundreds, but Corll's double life had fooled everyone. Henley and Brooks were arrested. At trial in 1974, Brooks, 19, pleaded guilty to 4 murders, testifying against Henley for leniency. He described Corll as a father figure turned tyrant, forcing participation under threat of death. Henley claimed self-defense in killing Corll, but admitted luring 6 victims. His tearful testimony, "I was scared of him," swayed the jury somewhat, but he was convicted of 6 counts, sentenced to 6 99-year terms. Brooks got the same. Both are still in Texas prisons. Henley, now 68, has petitioned for parole multiple times, citing his role in stopping Corll. Brooks died in 2021 from COVID complications. The aftermath rippled far. Families like the Balchs, who lost 2 sons, founded advocacy groups for missing kids, pushing for better police response to runaways. Houston's gay community, wrongly suspected at first, faced stigma amid the era's homophobia. Though Corll's crimes weren't sexually motivated that way, they were about control. The case inspired books like The Man with the Candy and episodes of true crime shows, exposing how predators exploit poverty and family breakdowns. Today, Memorials.Houston's parks and the boatshed site is a quiet field, but the scars remain. What drove Dean Corll? Psychologists point to his domineering mother, absent father, and repressed rage, a classic profile of a narcissist masking inadequacy with violence. He wasn't a disorganized killer. He was methodical, almost corporate in his operation. The Candyman wasn't born evil. Society, neglect, and unchecked urges forged him. His story warns us, monsters don't always look the part. The Houston mass murders remind us that evil hides in everyday smiles. If this story moved you, like, subscribe, and share below. What shocked you most? Stay vigilant, stay safe. Thanks for watching. And remember, stay curious.